The night was colder than usual, with the city lights flickering like tiny stars beneath the towering skyscraper. Among them stood the headquarters of a billion-dollar empire, an empire built from nothing, brick by brick, by a man the world knew as ruthless, brilliant, and untouchable. But tonight, that very man was walking into his own company, unnoticed, unseen, no bodyguards, no limousines, no perfectly tailored suits, just him, a plain hoodie, and a quiet determination in his steps. Nathan Caldwell was a name whispered in business circles with both admiration and fear. He had everything: wealth, power, influence, but what he didn't have was a true sense of what happened within the walls of his own company. When he wasn't watching, he had spent years making decisions from the top, trusting reports and executives to tell him what was going on. But tonight, something felt different. A nagging instinct told him to step inside, not as the billionaire CEO, but as just another man in the building. The janitor barely looked up as Nathan passed him in the lobby, his mop dragging across the marble floor. The security guard at the front desk didn't spare him a second glance. Perfect. That's exactly how he wanted it. He took the back stairs instead of the elevator, his footsteps echoing in the empty stairwell as he climbed to the upper floors. He had never walked these halls without an entourage before, without people clearing the way for him, announcing his presence. It felt different. As he made his way through the dimly lit corridors, something unexpected stopped him in his tracks. A sound, faint, almost drowned by the hum of computers and flickering fluorescent lights. It was a muffled sob, raw and filled with something deeper than just sadness. It was the sound of someone breaking, someone at their limit. Nathan's heart tightened. He had spent years perfecting the art of ignoring emotions in business. Feelings didn't build empires. Logic did. Strength did. But something about this moment made him pause. He followed the sound, stepping carefully, his instincts sharp. The sobbing was coming from a small office, the kind tucked away where no one important usually paid attention. The door was slightly open, and through the gap, he saw her. A woman, her shoulders shaking, her hands gripping the edge of her desk, as if holding on for dear life. Papers were scattered around her, some crumpled, others with red ink slashed across them. A laptop screen glowed in front of her, filled with emails that looked far from friendly. Nathan stood frozen, something unfamiliar twisting in his chest. He had read numbers, performance reports, efficiency statistics, but none of those ever told him the story of the person sitting in front of him now. This was different. This was real. For the first time in a long time, he wasn't just Nathan Caldwell, the billionaire. He was just a man, standing outside a room, watching someone fall apart, and he had no idea what he was going to do next. Nathan stood there for a moment, his fingers gripping the cold metal frame of the door. The woman in front of him had no idea she was being watched, and for the first time in years, he felt like an outsider in his own company. He had built this empire with the belief that hard work and results mattered above all else. He paid his employees well, offered benefits, and rewarded those who performed. But what he was witnessing now wasn't just an overworked employee staying late. It was someone drowning under the weight of something far heavier than just a job. He took a slow step closer, careful not to startle her. The woman let out a shaky breath and wiped at her face with trembling fingers, her laptop screen still casting a dull glow against her tear-streaked cheeks. Her nameplate on the desk caught his eye. Emily Carter, marketing analyst. He had never heard her name before. She was just another employee among thousands, buried somewhere in the middle of a corporate structure that barely registered on his radar. But here she was, breaking right in front of him. Nathan hesitated before clearing his throat, just loud enough to make his presence known. Emily jolted, her head snapping up, her eyes wide with embarrassment. She quickly wiped at her face, again, trying to compose herself. But the redness in her eyes and the tightness in her jaw betrayed her. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you come in, she said, her voice unsteady. Nathan could have walked away. He could have pretended he hadn't seen her in this moment of weakness and let her deal with whatever had pushed her to the edge. But something about the way she sat there, trying to pull herself together, while surrounded by crumpled papers and a screen filled with what looked like rejection emails, made it impossible for him to ignore. "You okay?" he asked, his voice quieter than he expected. Emily let out a weak laugh, shaking her head. That's a dangerous question to ask this late at night. She forced a small smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Sorry, you probably need the room. I was just..." She gestured vaguely at the mess around her. "It's been a long day." Nathan glanced at the papers on her desk. Some of them looked like proposals. Others had notes scribbled across them in red ink. Most of them corrections or criticisms. One particular email on her screen caught his eye before she quickly closed the laptop, as if trying to hide it. But he had seen enough. "Your performance has been underwhelming. We expected more." Nathan felt something tighten in his chest. He had seen plenty of emails like that before. He had sent plenty of them. He ran his company with high standards, and he expected his employees to meet them. But looking at Emily now, seeing the sheer exhaustion in her eyes, he wondered if he had ever truly understood what those words did to a person on the receiving end. "You work in marketing?" he asked, trying to keep his tone casual. Emily nodded, rubbing at her temple. "Yeah, or at least I do for now. Probably not for much longer at this rate." Nathan frowned. "Why do you say that?" She let out a tired sigh, leaning back in her chair. "Because no matter how hard I work, it's never enough. I stay late. I redo campaigns. I fix things that weren't even my mistakes. But somehow, I'm still the one who gets blamed when things go wrong." She let out a bitter laugh. "And the worst part? No one even knows I exist. I could disappear tomorrow, and I doubt anyone would notice." Nathan felt something cold settle in his stomach. The irony wasn't lost on him. She was right. He hadn't noticed her. He had walked these halls for years, approving budgets, restructuring departments, making decisions that affected thousands of lives. And yet he had never once thought about the people who sat at these desks, the ones who kept everything running, while executives like him sat in glass offices. He glanced around the small office. It wasn't one of the sleek, modern conference rooms where high-level deals were made. It was a cramped space, the kind of place where employees were expected to work without being noticed, the kind of place where someone like Emily could feel invisible. "That's not how it's supposed to be," Nathan said, after a long pause. Emily let out another small laugh, shaking her head. "Tell that to the people in charge." Nathan clenched his jaw. He was the person in charge. He knew he couldn't just reveal who he was. Not yet. If he told her the truth now, everything she said after this would be filtered through fear or politeness. No. He needed to hear the raw, unfiltered truth about what was really happening in his company. "Tell me," he said, leaning slightly against the desk. "What's the worst part about working here?" Emily hesitated. "Why do you care?" "Because," he said, choosing his words carefully, "sometimes the people at the top don't see what's happening on the ground, and maybe they should." Emily studied him for a moment, as if trying to figure out if he was serious. Then, with a tired sigh, she ran a hand through her hair. "Fine. You want the truth?" Nathan nodded. "The worst part isn't the long hours. It's not even the pressure," she said. "It's feeling like none of it matters. Like you're just a name, on a spreadsheet, a number in a report. You work yourself to exhaustion, and no one cares. The people in charge only notice you when you mess up." She scoffed. "You know what's funny? They always talk about how this company is like a family. But I've never felt more alone in my life." Nathan felt his stomach twist. He had built this company from the ground up. He had sacrificed friendships, sleep, even a normal life to turn it into what it was today. But standing here, listening to Emily's words, he realized something unsettling. Somewhere along the way, he had stopped seeing the people who had built it with him. The realization hit him harder than he expected. He had walked in tonight thinking he knew his company. But now, for the first time, he was starting to see it through the eyes of the people who lived it every day. And he didn't like what he was seeing. He needed to know more, and he needed to fix it. But first, he had to decide what he was going to do next. Nathan stood there, absorbing every word Emily had said. The weight of it settled deep in his chest, heavier than any business deal or financial decision he had ever made. He had always believed he ran a company built on excellence, but now he saw the cracks, the people struggling in the shadows, unseen and unheard. It wasn't just about Emily. It was about every employee who felt like a ghost in the very company they worked tirelessly for. But what was he supposed to do now? Walk away and pretend he hadn't heard the truth? No, he couldn't. Nathan made a quick decision. "Come with me," he said. Emily looked at him confused. "What? Why?" "Just trust me," he said, his voice steady, but firm. She hesitated, but something in his tone made her push back her chair and stand. He led her out of the small office and down the hallway, past rows of empty cubicles, the hum of computers, the only sound filling the silence. Emily kept her, glancing at him, clearly skeptical, but she followed. When they reached the executive floor, she slowed. "Wait, where are we going?" Nathan didn't answer. He swiped a keycard and pushed open the door to the boardroom. Inside, a few senior executives were still gathered, finishing up a late-night strategy meeting. They looked up, startled, as Nathan walked in with Emily behind him. Mr. Caldwell, one of them, a middle-aged man in a sleek suit, frowned. "We weren't expecting you." Nathan held up a hand, cutting him off. "That's because I wasn't supposed to be here. But I think it's time we all had a real conversation about what's happening inside this company." Emily froze beside him, her eyes widening. "Wait, what?" Nathan turned to her, and, for the first time that night, let the truth settle between them. "I'm Nathan Caldwell," he said simply. "The CEO." The color drained from Emily's face. You're him?" The room was completely silent. The executives exchanged uneasy glances, clearly sensing this was not a routine meeting. Nathan exhaled, then looked directly at Emily. "You said something back there that stuck with me. That this company claims to be a family, but you've never felt more alone." He glanced at the executives. "And I think that's a problem we need to fix, starting right now." One of the executives cleared his throat. "Sir, if there's an issue, we can handle it." "No," Nathan interrupted, his voice sharper than before. "That's the problem. You haven't handled it. You've let the people who keep this company running feel disposable, overworked, unseen." He turned back to Emily. "How many other employees feel the way you do?" Emily hesitated, still trying to process what was happening. Then, gathering her courage, she said, "A lot." Nathan nodded, already knowing the answer. He turned back to the room. From this moment forward, things are going to change. I want a full report on employee satisfaction. Not just numbers, but real feedback. I want to meet with department heads and hear directly from the people working under them. And most importantly, I want policies in place that make sure no one feels like a number on a spreadsheet again. He glanced at Emily. Starting with her promotion, Emily's eyes widened. What? You deserve more than just being overlooked, Nathan said. Consider this my first step in making things right. The executives looked stunned, but no one dared challenge him. Nathan was known for making decisions fast, and once his mind was set, there was no undoing it. Emily stared at him, still in disbelief. I don't know what to say, Nathan offered a small smile. Then don't say anything. Just help me make sure no one else feels the way you did tonight. For the first time that evening, Emily's shoulders relaxed. The weight she had been carrying seemed just a little lighter. As Nathan left the boardroom that night, he knew one thing for certain. This wasn't just about fixing a broken system. It was about remembering the people who had built his company with him, and from now on, he would never forget them again.